Hello and welcome to this video. My name's David Thorne, and in this video we're going to be talking about the fundamental concepts of JavaScript, and this is based upon people that are absolute beginners at JavaScript. And in this video we're going to be going through the first 10 examples within 40 examples that I've made for you. So if you have no knowledge about JavaScript at all, I promise you if you watch all of these 40 examples split over these 4 videos, you are going to have a fundamental knowledge about all of the main concepts of JavaScript. It's going to give you an incredible basis to learning JavaScript, I promise you. And if you have any further questions, then feel free to ask and I'll make another video. But before we move on, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, add any questions or anything that you have to this video because it really helps me and also the channel. That's the last time I'm going to say that now. Thanks very much. Let's get started. All right. So first things first, everyone needs to understand Hello World and how we can output Hello World. Now I'm using Visual Studio Code here and I'm using the debugger. Another video, another tutorial, just trust me. And if we run this debugger, you'll see here it's going to output Hello World. Now there's a whole bunch of other usages of this, and this is then going to allow you to have warn and error and table. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of different ones here that you can use. All right, but console, when you want to be able to debug something, you want something to be outputted into the console, be it in a browser or on your terminal or using Node or on a server or something, and you literally want to debug it, this is your thing to use to debug on your console. All right. You should try to avoid to use it to put it into production code, but this is your thing to use. But let's just skip straight on because we're going to use console.log a lot of the rest of this video. So let's just say it's a brief introduction to console.log. So the next example is we now got variables and variable assignments and declaring or different data types. And you can see here we have let and const, right? And then console log age and birth year once again. And I'm 44, I was born in 1978, so my birth year is 1978, my age is 44. As you would expect, my birth year doesn't change, but my age does change. And constant means it stays the same. And in this situation, let age be equal to 44. It's very declarative. Let age be 45. Let age be 44 plus 1. It can change its value, all right? So that's what it does. But there's a constant, and this is also a variable. You can also say just age is 44 too, but it's better done this way rather than that way. There's just some good practices, and those are the old days of doing JavaScript. All right, today you should be using the actual variable. Yeah, you should be using let or const. All right, I don't want to get too deep into it. Anyway, next example. Example number 3 is more data types here, and here once again we've got a variable, which because we're saying let, and the variable identifier is first name is equal to Dave, and this is a string, right? We'll get into a little bit further into this, but this is a literal string, so we can type any text in here and it will just be saved into this first name variable. And then score, obviously because I'm perfect, I get 100 out of 100, and his passing is true. So true is Boolean, right? This is 1 or 0. This is yes or no. This is a binary amount, and it's the way of indicating whether something is high power or low power. And here we can say one of the key words is then true or false. And basically it means 1 or 0 as well. But in JavaScript you use true or false. And you can see here when we output this, we get David Thorne is then the literal string that we have, the literal string here. And then the data type of this is then a number. And the type of this is called a Boolean, all right? But we'll use these data types a lot more in the rest of the video tutorial. So don't worry about it. And we output here console.log is then David Thorne 100 and then true. So moving on. Next thing we have is basically any operations that we can do that are part of mathematics and so on. And we have A and B here. A has the value of 10, and then B has the value of 5. And obviously they're let, so it means we can change the value as we go along. The first one that we have, console.log, A plus B, this is an expression, all right? Just like in mathematics, this is nothing more than an expression. And the expression will be evaluated first. A plus B obviously is 15. If we run this, and we'll see the first value is 15. A minus B, basic mathematics, is 5. A times B, 50. A divided by B is then 10 divided by 5 is then 2. And then we've got B modulus A right here is then 5 because there's 5 left over. And then we've got plus B. This means increment. But what we're doing is we're incrementing it first and then we're using the value, right? And if you did B plus plus, it would mean something different. It would mean that you are using the value and then incrementing it, all right? So it depends on which side you do it, but you can do it both sides. And decrement is then the same thing. So decrement it first and then use the value, and then B minus minus would be use the value and then decrement it afterwards, all right? And then we have exponentiation as well. So this is A to the power of 2 here as well. And then we have then just basic values of 5 and 9 at the end. So you can see that I've printed out all of the different values. But these you're going to use all through programming, all right, everywhere. So you need to learn these. And with that said, we now have the add function. And this is our introduction to the add function. And this log is a function too. We'll move on to what console is, but log is a function that takes a parameter. And in this sense, it takes two parameters. One is x and one is y. Now the addition, the arithmetic operator here of addition, it then obviously has a left-hand operand and a right-hand operand. This is an operand and this is an operand, all right? And this is an operator. And the return, this is a key word. This is saying, hey, this add function, right? So function is a key word here. And it's the name of the function is then add. And then these are the parameters, the arguments that you are going to give for the function call, right? And the return type is basically the sum of A plus B, okay? And when we use it here, we say add, and we use then the open and close parentheses. In other languages, you don't use the parentheses, the round brackets, but in JavaScript, you've got to, all right? But this is the easiest way and standard way to call a function, okay? So let's move on, but there'll be lots more examples of this. So now we have a temperature variable, which we can change because temperature can change. It's not a constant, right? And here we're going to say then if, so we're asking then if temperature is more than 25, which temperature is 30. So it would mean that this code block here would get called because it's hot outside because temperature is more than 25. Okay, this, if you've done any mathematical equations and so on, you know that if we said then temperature is less than 25, well 30 is not less than 25, so it would then jump to the else statement here, right? But because temperature is more than 25, it comes here. So it means that this is going to go one of two ways, all right? It's either going to go to this side or to this side. And there are other ways and means of doing this, but this is exactly what is going to happen. So once again, if it's temperature is more than 25, which it is, it's hot outside. And if we change it to 22, obviously that's going to go, it's not too hot, right? Because it's going to fall to this because temperature is then less than 25. And if we put it to 25, you know what we're going to get. We're going to get it's not too hot because 25 is not more than 25. If we wanted to include 25 in it, then we would say more than equal to 25. Now we would get it's hot outside. So this is it's exclusive for 25, right? It only includes, it's inclusive for everything above or greater than 25 when we're using just a greater than sign. But if we say then equals, then we are inclusive to the 25 as well, all right? So let's move on. So now we come to arrays, lists. You might have known them, collections, but here we have with the square brackets. There are other ways and means of doing this, but the most traditional way that developers use today and from other programming languages is to use the square braces, all right? You might have seen in other programming languages they use the curly braces, but in JavaScript this says that it's a collection. All right, it's an iterable collection. And here we've got apple, banana, and cherry. So we are basically saying fruits. Now it is possible in a list, okay, to have multiple or so elements that repeat themselves as many times as possible, and they are also ordered, which means that they will always stay in this order as well. And we'll move on to the other type that's unordered later, and that will not contain duplicates. So we can access the first element in this array by basically just saying fruits and then saying the square brackets and the index, because this is 0 indexed, which means that the first element is 0, second element is 1, and the third element is then, or the third element is then 2. All right, so we're always starting at 0. Okay, just like the ground floor, the first floor, second floor, third floor. You know, if you're on the first floor, it means that it's actually above the ground floor, and that's the same principle here, that this is then the ground floor of 0, this is then the first floor of 1, and so on. So in arrays they always include 0, and it's called a 0 indexed array. Okay, and it's done like that in every single programming language possible. All right, so if this is the first time you're learning it, then fruits 0 is going to be the first element, and fruits 1 will be the second, and fruits 2 will be the third element, and fruits 3 would then be undefined because it doesn't exist. And in some programming languages you have a real big problem with that. Fruits.length tells you basically how many elements it has in the array. So this will output 3 because that's exactly what it has. And you can see here when we say fruits 2, we get cherry. If we change this to 1, we then get banana, and we change this to 0, we then get apple. So we run it again. And if we remove this completely, you are then just going to get the whole array as per there. Okay, so let's just change this back. Moving on. Number 8. So now we're going to objects that represent a person. Okay, and these are done by then the curly braces. Now, JavaScript is a functional and also an object-oriented programming language. And in here we have then properties, and then we have values or key value pairs. Okay. Now in some languages you will see that they use then the string literals for the name. In JavaScript it's preferred to use it like this, and they still fall under exactly the same variable declaration rulings as such, but all of the properties need to be comma separated. So it's nothing more than saying town and so on, and then birth, date, and stuff like that. And objects can contain functions and all sorts of stuff in them as well, but we'll move into that a lot later. And then to be able to access the different properties, let's just take this away, access all of the different properties of that one person, we just say using dot notation here to access it. All right, there's other times where you might see like this arrow type thing, but that is doing something different, which we'll talk about in other programming languages, because it doesn't concern us in this. This is an object literal, okay, which means it's not a class. It doesn't need to be instantiated, anything like that. These are new words for you. They're literally as they are, as you see it. This is what you get. All right. There doesn't need to be any, and we'll move on to this later. It doesn't need to be any new person or anything like that. It's not like that. It's just a basic normal object in JavaScript. Okay. And an empty object in JavaScript would also be like this too. All right. Now you can put a semicolon on the end. You don't have to, but it would be good practice to do it. In many, I don't move into it. You don't have to put a semicolon on the end, but it's really good practice and safe practice to do so as well. All right. So let's go to number 9 now. Now we're going to iterate through a range basically, and this is not exactly a range, but what it's saying here is that this I is going to be a variable, all right, and its initial value is 0, all right, and after this the next command is to say, hey, if I is less than 5, and initially it's 0, right, then I want you to go to this one command within inside of the block here. All right, so this is basically a function, and it's going to get called multiple times, and this is then going to be the input to the function, the I. And once it's finished, it's then going to increment the I. So it means it's going to use it first, and then it's going to increment it, all right? So this is something you have to remember. If we were then going to go plus plus I, this would mean then increment first and then use. But we're saying use it, use it and then increment it. So if we just put on the debugger here, right, and we run it, and it comes to then the first one, and we then just go to it, we've got 0, and then we go to the next one, we got 1, and it's going to come again, got 2, and we've got come again, got 3, and we see I is now 3, all right? And we come to this next spot, and we see I is now 4, but we don't see it down here yet because it hasn't got there. And now it comes to this line, it's outputted 4, and so on. So this is just a quick intro to how to debug your code as well. But this is something you really have to get used to, is the for loop as well, because it's a super important thing to know in programming languages in general, and also how to loop. Loop is a key word here to use. So now we've got an HTML version or example here, which we can run the show preview here as well. And we can see that we've got document.getElementById. And this is talking to the document object model, all right? And we're going to move into this a little bit later, but right now we're just talking about JavaScript more. But what we're saying here is get me my button, and this is this button because of the ID. They're both referencing each other here, this button, and getElementById is saying, hey, I want you to access this property, this attribute of button, all right? And now I want you to add a listener. So every single time this event happens, this is a click event that's happening on the button, right? I want you to execute this one function, okay? And now if we have a look in the dev tools here, and we just get rid of all this rubbish, and we click this, you'll see that the button was clicked multiple times, all right? So this is what an event handler does, and this is the event handler. This is the event, okay? And add event listener is basically mapping the handler to the event, and so it means it's going to listen, and when that event happens, it's going to execute the handler that is going to happen. All right. So, but it's just an insight to you how to do it, and this is then the script tag of how we can execute JavaScript within inside of an HTML web page at any one point. All right, but. So there we go. That's now the first 10 examples. I hope you've got something out of this one video. Don't forget there are another 30 examples in the other 3 videos. The next video will be on the screen very shortly. If you do have any questions, please obviously don't forget to write them in the comment section down below. And please don't forget to give me a like or a subscribe, or even something else, whatever you want to do, just to give some feedback to the video, because it really helps me, and it also helps the channel, and it also helps other people to be able to find these videos, which hopefully help them too. With that said, the video is on the screen now for the second part. I'll see you in the next video.